Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be creating this rain animation using 4M3 inside of OBS Studio. As you can see, this thing is actually running in OBS. Let me see if I can open it. There we go. So you can see this is actually OBS. I'm currently in a scene and this is actively running in the background. You can use this for, things like when you're, I don't know, you can use it for something. But yeah, that is what we're going to be learning. That is what we're going to be creating today. Let's get started. So the first thing uh, we're gonna need for this to work is these two sources here that I have. One of them I called it raindrop, the other one I called it BG. So BG will be used for the lightning effect, and then the raindrop will be used for the rain, like the raindrop itself. So that is what you're gonna need to continue with this tutorial. So of course this one has to be stretched out, so we're gonna go ahead and stretch this, make sure that it's covering the whole screen, and then you can see the raindrop is above the BG, so that way it's visible, so that way the raindrop is actually visible. But if you put the raindrop under the BG, it's not gonna be visible, so make sure it's above the background. Alright, and once we're done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and hide the BG for now, and I'm also gonna take the raindrop and move it off the screen because we don't need it there. Um, we need it outside, out off the screen for this to work. I mean, not really, but it's better that way to keep the current scene clean of anything. Moving on, we're gonna need a couple variables here. First, I'm gonna create those variables, and then maybe later on, if I want to, I'm gonna go ahead and define them. Explain what's going on. So the first thing we're gonna need here is the source, the rain source itself. So we'll call it rain source name. I think I called my intro flash source name called mine BG. So you can put yours, whatever the name was for yours there. We're gonna need has flash. We can say this defaults by default, but later on we'll come back here and change it to true. But for now, just keep it as false. All right. And we're gonna create drop rates for like how many raindrops you need. Like in this case, let's do 40. Just wait. I think it was, what was it? I think 40. Was it 45? I think mine was like 20. No, we'll go 15. Alright, now we need drop height and drop width. So this is going to be the width, and then we're going to need the drop height. The range drop height. Height could be any value you want, and then we're going to do. I'm going to use fall base. This is going to be like how fast it should fall. I'm going to use that later. I think if I talk and type at the same time, it's just gonna make this video way longer than it has to be. It should be. So I'm just not gonna talk as much. I'm just gonna keep on getting this thing going. This is like gust, like wind, basically, like wind blowing stuff. Animation. A couple things we need here. We're gonna use wind now. Set it to 0 by default. I should stop talking because if I do talk, it's not gonna be good. We're gonna go ahead and just by default move the rain source out of the screen, out of the current scene, so that way it's not visible when the rain is falling. Let's see. Here we're also gonna create a template called rain, so we can use it later to like clone the raindrops. And then we're gonna go ahead and, if we want to, we can go ahead and move this off the screen as well by using screen width plus width, and yeah, that's how we can hide it if it was currently visible on the screen. All right, moving on to our next couple more variables here that we're actually gonna have to add. Before we do that, let's do spawn idx, set it to 0 by default. Okay, moving on. All right, so this is where everything's gonna start. I'm just gonna go ahead and do some login here. Call it rain starting. Just say starting. Okay, I don't need to think so much because if I do that, everything is going to be that. So this is where we're going to spawn the loop, like the wind loop. So we'll call this gust. And then we'll do some, this is where we're going to clone the rain particle themselves. I called mine rain, and then we need like how many raindrops we need to create. So in this case, I'm going to put drop rate, which is the one that we created above, and use 60 milliseconds each time. It's going to be creating 60 frames per second. And then we need drop, we'll call it setup. We'll call it setup. Yeah, we'll just call it setup. This is where you're going to be the setup of the drop, the rain itself, setting up the rain things, the movement things. Let's put some weights here, and then this is where we're going to do some falling animation. So rain falling. Okay, let's go ahead and do some flash animation here. This is like the flash effect, the thunder effect. So we're gonna say if has flash, then we're gonna go ahead and call flash. But if it doesn't have flash, we're just gonna tell it to go to idle state. That's it. I'll explain that later on, but yeah, that's all we're gonna need to do there. All right, let's go ahead and begin the let's create the gast loop itself, which is, I think I called it gast, right? Yeah, right here. So we'll call it create the gast loop function to create like the wind effects and stuff like that. So create var local. Let's do some target wind. Use some predefined functions here. We'll go with 0. I think I called it gast max, right? Yeah, that's what I call it. Gast max. And we're gonna divide it by 10. Okay, another local variable. We'll call this step, or we could just call it guest step. Set it to 0 by default, and then we're gonna go ahead and create our we're gonna create it ghost ramp. I think that's how you say it, right? That's how you pronounce it. Ghost. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and increase our current cast step by 1, and then we're gonna go ahead and increase the wind value, the wind now also. Let's see, how do we do this? We do wind now plus target wind minus wind now times 0.03. That's like the force, basically the force multiplier. And then we're gonna go ahead and wait for a little. Once we're done with that, we're gonna go ahead and do some check statements here, just to be safe a bit, you know what I'm saying? So we need to do, yeah, ghost step is less than 120. If that's the case, then we need to go back to ghost ramp. If that's not the case, then we're gonna tell it to go back to ghost loop, right? I think that's what I have. No, I called it ghost. I just called it ghost. But it was ghost. Look there for a minute. I was about to fuck myself, man. I swear to God. Alright, moving on to the next operation loop. So the next operation will be I think I called mine setup. This is where it's gonna be setting up the current grain protocol, like, you know what I'm saying? So we'll call it setup, and of course this is gonna do some setting up that we gotta do. var 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 var. I think I called mine one so we're just keeping track of the current thread that we're running, that this is currently running on. I'm gonna keep track of my current ID here, or let's call it my index. Call it spawn ID, and then just reset the current size. So we'll do x1, y1. Create some base width there. Right, yeah, that's good. And then create some base height. So we're just keeping track of the current height and the current width because we're going to be using it later on. So we're going to go ahead and check if base width is less than 1, then that would mean we have an invalid width. So we're just going to ignore it and tell it to jump to somewhere else. But if that's not the case, we're going to go ahead and tell it to go to height. So we're going to go ahead and check the height. Let me see, check the height. And then if, wait. Oh yeah, this is where we need to define the bad width. So bad width will be var base width, right? Yeah, but var base width, and then we're gonna set it to 1, and then we're gonna create our label, which is checking height. Then we're gonna do if base height is less than 1, then we're gonna go ahead and tell it to jump to bad height. And if that's not the case, we're gonna go ahead and tell it to go to drop. We'll call it drop reset. That will be like the main loop. This is the main recycling loop of the raindrop itself when it hits the ground and stuff. Okay, but if it's not the case, we go here. I think we have bad heights here, and then we do var base edge 1, and we're good, right? I think that's it. All right, moving on. Our next operation, our next label here, will be the drop reset that we just defined, that we're going to be using. I'm not sure what I called mine. I'm sure it is just drop reset. But yeah, right here, we're just going to go ahead and do this, create some local variables that we're going to be using. We need some depth. This is going to be like also some kind of force and some kind of value manipulator that we're going to be using for later on when we need to get the width, the x, and the speed as well. So we'll go ahead and create speed first. So this is going to give me my speed. It's going to be width, depth plus times for range. That's what I called mine. And then our next will be the opacity. This is going to be when the rain is like, fading out and stuff like that. So we can use 0.18 plus dip. I'm not good at spelling sometimes. Plus dip times. Wait, am I doing this right? Plus dip times 0.6. So this is like the max value that we're going to take. All right, I'm not going to talk. I'm actually wasting time by talking. All right. Next up, we need the width and the height. So I think we have something called drop width. So we're just going to times that by the depth. And then same thing with my height. So just going to be drop height. I think we defined this all the way to the top. That's where we defined it. If I'm wrong, then we're going to fix it later on. right, next up we are going to create my X and my Y. So this will be randomly generated. Random, so it will be, I forgot what it was. I think it was 080 screen width plus 80, right? Something like that, yeah. Yeah, okay. And then var local my Y. Same thing, randomly generated number. This one will be 0 minus screen height. Screen height, and then 0 minus 40. So that way it spawns all the way off screen and then comes back down, like, you know, falling down basically. All right, next up we're gonna go ahead and create some momentum, some recess, the width and the height by using scale, of course. I'm going to divide this by, what was it, base? Yeah, base. And then my height divided by base height, right? We're gonna go ahead and do some fading animation as well. So this is gonna be using my opacity that I just created up top. And then we're gonna go ahead and move it. Instead of move, we're just gonna use pose here because this is just placing it to that position. So we're just gonna do this. It's not falling, this is just placing it to where it should start falling from, I guess, you know, that's what it does. All right, we're done with that. Moving on to our almost final animation, which is the falling. So this is where it's going to be falling from. So we're going to do drop, fall, var local. We'll create some drift. And now times depth. So I don't want to go over 30 minutes, so that's why I'm trying to get this thing going fast. And if I talk, I start wasting more time. Okay, let me just show. Y plus my speed. Later on, I'll explain what's happening once I got everything going. My X. Wait, am I doing this right? Let me just think for a bit. Okay, I think this is gonna be my drift. Hopefully that should be good. Okay, local. No, just gonna do local. My tilt. So this will be like the rotation based on where the wind is blowing, I guess. So it'll be my drift divided by speed, right? But I think I called it my speed. Drive out my speed times. Let's go 7.3. And what's next? What's next, guys? Oh yes, this is next. So next is basically just setting the tilt, rotation, and we're good. All right, moving on to our next operation. So this operation will be checking if we are actually touching the ground. So we could do my X is greater than screen width plus 90. Is it 90? I think plus 90. Are we using 90? We're not using 90. We're using 80. Oh, 90 because plus 10. Okay, I get it. Okay, yeah, that's right. 90. So if here we're saying if it's basically, you know, off the screen by this much, then we need to tell it to reset itself. So we're going to tell it to wrap around. But if that's not the case, we're going to go ahead and check if X is less than 0 minus 90, which is like off the other side, on the other side. So if that's the case, then we're gonna go ahead and tell it wrap it to the other side, on the right side. And then if that's not the case for any of them, then we're gonna tell it to check if the rain has hit the ground basically. So we're gonna do, oh my god, it's already 20 minutes in. Oh my god. We're just gonna call it floor, fuck it. Floor, okay, and then we're gonna go ahead and create a label here. This is where we're gonna create those rock left and rock right. Okay, so this is just gonna be resetting the position. So we're gonna do r my x 0 minus 90 minus 80. I mean, it's supposed to be like that. Let me think. 0 minus 90, and then we're gonna go ahead and tell it to jump back to floor because yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. Same thing with the other one. Rub right. We're gonna go ahead and do my x, which is gonna be screen. That width plus 80. Plus 80. Plus is that 80 or 90? I think so. Okay. And then we're gonna go ahead and tell it to jump. I mean, we don't have to tell it to jump, but you know, it's basically the same operation. All right. Let's go ahead and create our floor check statement here. Which is gonna be if x. So this, I mean, if y is greater than screen dot height minus my height, then we need to do some splash effect. Get out of my room. Mommy, not the food, yo, man. I'm okay.
Where's the small, bro?
Alright, get.
Oh, sorry. Look at the stuff for the dog.
What are you looking for?
That brown, bro. It keeps getting lost. You guys.
So loud. Close my door. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and do splash here real quick. So that means if the let me just see what's going on. Okay. Now hopefully everything's settled. Alright, let's move on. What was I doing actually? I forgot. I think I was doing the splash animation when it hits the ground. Okay. So if it hits the ground, that's what's gonna happen. If it has not hit the ground, we're just gonna go ahead and do some let me see. So flow check, splash, floor, and then if it's greater than, then do splash. If it's not, then we're just gonna keep on moving it. So we're gonna do move x, my x, so we're moving it down, and then move it by y. We'll do maybe like something like that. Wait every 16 milliseconds, so that's every frame I think per second. And then we're gonna tell it to go back to, what was it? This one. I'm gonna tell it to go back to this. Okay, and yeah, now we're gonna go ahead and write that do splash label. So this is when it hits the ground. So what we need to do here is reset the height of the I think it's like that. Is it? Yeah. Also gonna go ahead and reset the position as well. And then we're gonna move it as well at the same time while we are resetting the stuff. Resetting things. So splash. We're gonna be using scale to animate this. X, I'm gonna do my width times 2.2 divided by this width. Let's do the height, the y as well. It's gonna be my height times 0.16 divided by base height. think it's base height. So I'm doing this now. This is the right way. Let's do 40 seconds, 46 seconds, and then scale it down a little bit more. So I do x width times, I think 30.6 divided by this width, and then base my height times 0.07 divided by this width, this height. So weight about maybe we should do fade first, right? Fade to 0. So this is where we're gonna hide the rain when it hits there. So first we're gonna shrink it, and then we're gonna hide it, and then we're gonna go ahead and wait for about, let's do 100 milliseconds, and then we're gonna go ahead and do reset. So I think I called it drop reset. So this is where it's going to make the rain fall again, the current particle fall again. Right, that's what I called it, I think. Okay, I think that's probably almost everything that we need to get started. So let's go ahead and save it, test this out, see if it works. I'm gonna go back to my script here, reload it, see what we have. So I click execute. Oh, okay, we got some errors. Oops, okay, I didn't think that would happen. Let's see what's going on here. It's saying 88 jump drop fall. Okay, drop fall. That is line 88. Drop fall. Do I drop reset? Drop fall 88. Where's 88? Right here. Drop fall. Yeah, I have it right there. What's the error again? It's saying invalid statement at line. Oh, it's my fault. I didn't use the bang. So you always gotta make sure you're using the bang for for this language. It starts with bang. There we go. Okay, so you can see we have our raindrop here. Animation is currently running, and it's yeah, it's actually good. Really good. I like it. Nice. So that's the rain effect right there, running in OBS. But as you can see, it doesn't have the lining yet. That's because we have not really completed that line. So sorry, I mean, for that to work, what we need to do is add another block here for lining animation. So we're gonna go ahead and do lining. So we'll call it. Did I think I called it flash? I called it flash. Yeah. So I'm just gonna say flash, and of course we're gonna do some flash animation here. So let's create some local variables. Call it gap. So this is like gap between the thunders. How long it should take for it to like do the flashing animation. We're gonna be using milliseconds because that's what this thing that he works with should be. Yeah, is it like that? I think this one. Yeah, like this. Okay, that's good. And now we can go ahead and do wait, and then give it gap. So it's gonna wait for that long before he does this. What did I call mine? I think I called it flash source name. I think that's what I called it. And then we're gonna do fade. I think the first thing to do here is actually make sure it's visible, and then use the fade animation. So we're gonna use fade 0.9, 15 milliseconds, and then wait a little bit, and then fade again 0.05, 110 milliseconds. So this could be anything you want. I'm just creating like the lining effect right now. So you can use any kind of wait duration you want there. But if you want it to look like mine, make sure you're following along what I do here. We're gonna wait about 1 seconds and then fade again. So this one will be 0.6, and we'll use 40. let's do 45. And then we're gonna wait one last minute, 55 milliseconds, and then do our last fade, which is setting it to 0 for about 500 milliseconds. And then once we're done with that, we're gonna wait for 520 milliseconds and then jump back to our main loop, which is flash. So this is gonna be repeating over and over again. Save, and I think we're done. Yeah. Oh, of course, one more thing we need to do here. Just create the idle label here, and then do wait. Let's go like, I don't know, just something like that. So this is just a waiting and idle states. That's what this is. But it's never going to come here. It's only gonna come here for see, for this here, for this statement. So, but it didn't actually, for some reason it actually worked. Going back down here, I think it's because I had it or something. It should have thrown an error because it didn't exist before. I don't know, did I break something? So here I'm saying if has flash, then go ahead and jump. But in this case, if we go up here, you can see has flash is currently disabled, set to false. So for this to work, we need to set it to true. And now, going back here, of course, we're gonna have to reload the script. And then, oh yeah, there we go. So this is the error that I was looking for. But it actually did print it, so it means it works. But now it should actually be fine. So here we go. I'm gonna execute the code. And hopefully, we should see thunder. See, any second. Come on, come on, come on. Do it. There we go. Look at that. Wow. Yes. Very nice. I like that. Yeah, that is all for today's documentation and tutorial on how to create raining animation in OBS. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys on the next documentation or a tutorial that I'm gonna create. Bye bye.